Marco Arment is here. He's MarcoArment on the Twitter. He's pretty active. And he has a website, marco.org. And of course, he makes the best podcasting app. In my personal opinion, is the one I use as my daily. I'll use Spotify from time to time. I'll use iTunes, the Apple Podcast. But Overcast is my default, mainly because I love the queue. And I love the custom settings. The queue to me is everything. I just start at the top of my queue. I work my way down, and I have my paid podcast in one area. It's just a great product. Dan, when you hear Marco talk about, hey, Spotify now has this big chip stack. I'm adding that piece. And they're going to take something like Joe Rogan, which is, I think, the number one podcast in the world, and they're going to say, you know what? It's now we're going to control it. We're going to control it 100%. Maybe there'll be clips here or there, but no more RSS feed. It's not going to be available on other players. It's an exclusive. Whereas when they bought Bill Simmons's company, I think for 200 or so, 250, they said, hey, the podcast will almost all be available still on RSS. We may cherry pick some content. What do you think about this change? We've only seen like a couple of examples of this, and then there's Luminary, which I think is failing pretty hard, actually, because, there's so much great content out there that, for me, like Russell Simmons, I'm interested in maybe listening to Russell Simmons, but I'm not interested in paying for Russell Brand.
Yeah, I think that they're the one that is the easiest for everybody to see how that one's going. I think there's probably a lot of situations like Luminary, we just don't know as much about their financials. But agreed. But to get back to the Rogan thing, look, to me, this is another domino to fall that, for those of us that have been working in this field for a long time, a decade or longer, some of us, it's been getting gentrified for a while. And, I think to some extent, this harkens back to like Howard Stern moving from terrestrial radio to Sirius or XM at the time. But I think it suggests a general trend, and this really started in 2018. The shot across the bow that I saw was when iHeart picked up Stuff Media for like $55 million. And then one by one, you keep seeing these things happen. Now, Rogan, because he's top dog, that one's getting the most headlines. But I think this is just one in a succession of many. And unfortunately, I think that it is... and fortunately, I think that this is the new way that this is going to go. This is Starbucks moving into the hipster town, and everybody goes, oh man, it's getting so commercial. It's going to happen. It's going to ruin some things that we love about podcast. It's going to open up opportunities as well. And I think... What is
the opportunity it opens up?
Yeah. Potentially better listener experiences. You've got real horsepower behind groups like Spotify that are coming in and can actually, like how long have people been complaining about discoverability, and recommendations? How about navigability, being able to go, you can't talk to the thing right now, but, we may talk about this later in our conversation here today, but, think about the opportunity with connected voice and what's going to happen as that industry keeps emerging, and what real players are going to be able to do to evolve the listening experience. And they're also just going to be able to resource some programs that is really, really hard in kind of the ragtag way that most of us have come to love the industry. So I think it's both. I think there's a good and a bad, but what you have to understand is that there's really two worlds that are starting to split off here. This place was built by venture capital backed startups. I was at the beginning, and we launched brands like Dollar Shave Club, ZipRecruiter, Blue Apron, MeUndies. These were companies that came in, and we put them on podcasts because, frankly, they couldn't afford to do a lot else other than, search. And that's why we've had all these crazy promo codes and vanity URLs for all these reasons, because these are performance marketers. They're counting customers when they buy the ads. Now, that's not going to be what gets podcasts to the next level. That's what got us here. What gets the ecosystem to the next level is when they get brand dollars.
So Coors Light, which is a sponsor of our podcast now, and I'm popping open a Chris Coors Light once in a while. You know what I thought when I saw it, Marco, and I think I may have responded to you on Twitter about this, is what I like about this is I think it now turns... I don't want to see, the top 200 podcasts all get taken off the market. But if one or two get picked off and they become platform specific, it's almost like, Issa Rae going from YouTube to HBO and having a bigger budget. Okay, fine. But it opens up another slot because the number one podcaster is gone. We all get to move up one in the ranking. So as long as it doesn't become a huge trend, if people want to cash out like Howard Stern did and lose, because I think Joe Rogan loses audience in this. He's going to lose audience. So, Marco, what do you think about that as like a sort of counter? And is it okay for people to get cherry picked, or do you think we're actually in an existential problem where what happened with RSS and blogs was Twitter, I don't think supports RSS anymore. Medium doesn't support RSS, and RSS players all the RSS readers went away except for maybe FeedBurner.
I mean, RSS, there's still a community of nerds like me who use it every day.
Yeah.
But certainly it isn't as big as it used to be, and I think that's largely because the world of blogs isn't as big as it used to be, and that has lots of effects or causes to it. I think you can point directly to social networks and timelines being the way people consume and produce most information these days as probably the biggest reason. But going back to your question, I think, there is some degree of certainly audience loss. Like, when Howard Stern moved to Sirius, he did, like I went with him, but most people didn't go with him.
He lost 90% of its audience. He went from 20, 30 million a day to like 2.
Right. And this is why, when somebody like Rogan moves to a single app, he does have the advantage that Spotify is a big app, and by most numbers, Spotify seems to have something like 10% market share of podcast listening apps, and that's a lot. That's and they achieve that fairly quickly, so that's not nothing, but that's not the entire market.
Right.
And people know from the world of video apps, like, if you want to watch your TV shows through an app, you have to have 17 different apps to watch all the shows you want to watch, because every network and everything has its own thing. Nobody wants that. No, consumers hate that. Nobody would accept that if they had much of a choice. And right now, podcasting has gone all this time where the vast majority of content people listen to can be accessed in one app. And it's even better. It can be one of like 100 apps, but it's like you can just have one app on your phone and hear all your podcasts. And so great, when one or two podcasts have been purchased and moved to exclusive deals with somebody, they do lose a lot of audience. And we do, like, I hear from them from, Overcast customers. I hear from them I see people online complaining to them that they can't listen in their podcast app anymore. And the biggest thing I hear is they mostly stop listening to those shows.